than 700 people from Germany and Brunei have received passes to enter Singapore under the Vaccinated Travel Lane.
NUS and NTU rise in the World University Rankings to their highest positions ever.
And Marvel's first Asian superhero film is out in cinemas now with plenty of high-flying action. You're watching The Big Story, coming to you live from the Straits Times newsroom. I'm Olivia Quay.
I'm Haryanto Diman, and you can subscribe to the Straits Times channel so you never miss a single episode.
According to the Civil Aviation Authority of Singapore, on the first day of applications for the new Vaccinated Travel Lane, a total of 755 passes were issued. 735 of the applicants are coming in from Germany, 20 from Brunei. They applied to travel to Singapore between September the 8th and October 7th.
Among the travellers from Germany, 301 are short-term visitors and 434 are long-term pass holders. And for Brunei, 18 travel passes were issued to short-term visitors and to 2 long-term pass holders. The first VTL flight from Germany is expected to arrive here on September 8th and on September 9th from Brunei.
Well, from air travel to land, the Land Transport Authority said today that those linked to the bus interchanges clusters have only shown mild or no COVID-19 symptoms, and all detected cases so far have been confined to workers and some household members.
So, to reduce the likelihood of further transmissions, safe management measures will be enhanced, like segregating staff resting and dining areas at interchanges, as well as setting up physical separators at designated smoking areas. Now, last night, 29 new cases were added to the clusters involving 8 bus interchanges, with the total number standing at 314. 9 new cases were linked to the BRUNEI bus interchange and 8 were to the one at Toa Payoh.
Other bus interchange clusters at Tampines, Jurong East, Bishan, Punggol and Clementi grew by between 1 and 4 cases each. No new cases were added to the Sengkang cluster.
For a closer look, Associate Professor Alex Cook, Vice Dean of Research at the Swee Hock School of Public Health, joins us now. Welcome back to the show, Professor. The environment at the bus interchange, how the drivers can be at several of them a day, and their contact with passengers, though may be transient. Given these factors, Prof, how big could the clusters grow? Could we see something similar to the KTV cluster?
I think it's true, yes. Bus drivers are frontline workers. They themselves are exposed to quite a large number of people. And at the interchanges, they interact with other bus drivers who are themselves also exposed to a large number of people. So it's not unexpected that infection rates amongst this group could be quite high. And so, yes, there is a potential for super spreading events, like with the Bishui cluster or the KTV clusters. However, I think that for passengers, if you're vaccinated, if you're wearing your mask and you're washing your hands after using the bus, the risk should actually be quite low. I personally take the bus most days, and I haven't changed my travel patterns at all in spite of the current cluster.
Well, that's important to note. Well, Prof, yesterday, Singapore reported 90 unlinked cases, the highest recorded in a single day so far. But help us put that into perspective. How worrying is it?
So as vaccination levels go up, the proportion of cases which are mild or even asymptomatic, that will also go up. So these breakthrough infections may still be infectious, although they're probably less so than unvaccinated cases. But because they're less sick, they're less likely to go to the doctor and less likely to get tested, or they're less likely to be identified for contact tracing. So we believe that as a greater proportion of cases are found that are unlinked, that's not a particular cause of concern. It's just a side effect of us now having 80% of the population vaccinated.
So on that, Professor, we've hit the 80% vaccination milestone, but given what we've talked about so far, should we hold off our next stage of reopening, even though it's contrary to our stance of living with the virus?
So it's not clear to me what we would achieve if we held off on relaxing measures, or even if we tightened measures again. Perhaps the cases would go back down after a while once the current clusters come under control, but then we'd be relaxing measures again in the future, and then new clusters would form, and the numbers would pop back up again, unless something fundamentally changed in the meantime. Now, if you look at the numbers from MOH, yes, 80% of us are now fully vaccinated, but there's only about 3% of the population left who have had their first dose and are waiting to complete their vaccination by getting the second dose. So waiting for those 3% to get vaccinated is not going to change the situation much. It's not going to change the transmissibility of the virus. The only things that we might be waiting for now would be to start vaccinating children, once we're sure it's safe to do so, or to start rolling out booster doses. So politically, the government have got to decide, is it worth the economic and the social harm to keep ourselves in this pandemic mode for some future time point when we can reduce the risk of transmission a little bit from boosters or from pediatric vaccination? And so it's not obvious to me that such a volte-face is merited.
Right. Well, Professor, thank you once again for your insights. We've been speaking with Associate Professor Alex Cook from the Swee Hock School of Public Health at NUS.
Family-style KTV operators have submitted a formal appeal to Trade and Industry Minister Gan Kim Yong to allow them to reopen from September 15th.
One of their proposed mid to long-term plans is to separate the classification of family KTVs from KTV lounges with hostess services. This was petitioned before in July, while the operators also proposed short-term plans, including a clear exit path for nightlife operators to leave the industry unconditionally, with protection against potential lawsuits from landlords and stakeholders.
Tax collection was 7.3% less than the previous 12 months, with the Inland Revenue Authority of Singapore collecting $49.6 billion in the last financial year. Tax revenue is used to fund various social, economic and security programs.
According to Iras's annual report, the total tax collection represents 73.6% of the government's operating revenue and 10.6% of Singapore's GDP. With tax collection falling last year due to weaker business conditions, one analyst told us that the impact of the pandemic could still be felt in the months ahead.
If we are to look at the data for 2020 tax revenue collection, about 62% of it is from income-based tax such as corporate income tax, personal income tax, and withholding tax itself. And if we then focus on corporate and personal income tax, because of the preceding year of taxation, there's a bit of a lagging effect in terms of tax collections. And coupled with the fact that companies can carry forward losses they may have incurred during the pandemic period for future years' utilization. And there's also a question on how quickly can, say, personal income be restored. I do believe that in terms of the income-based taxation, there might be a lag that will go beyond 2020 itself. The other aspect of tax collection, which would be transaction-based taxation, such as stamp duty, and consumption-based taxation, such as GST, those account for about 29%. And you probably would find a more immediate effect in terms of the tax collections with regards to these two types, and because this ties very closely to economic performance. So it will depend in 2022 and 2021 itself, whether the transactions and consumption will pick up significantly, because that would then help to boost the tax collections with regards to stamp duty and GST.
Don't miss our sit-down interview with Finance Minister Lawrence Wong tomorrow. We'll be discussing Singapore's priorities on the economy and society and so much more. Join us at 5:30 p.m. on Friday, September the 3rd.
From our finance minister to Malaysia's, reappointed to the post last week, Tunku Zafrul Abdul Aziz is part of a cabinet largely unchanged by new Prime Minister Ismail Sabri Yaakob.
In an ST Connect webinar series today, he talks about his plans to revive Malaysia's flagging economy. Here's a snippet.
Well, the two key words here is the two C's for me in the new government. It's about continuity and it's about consistency. So in the past 17 months, we have been focusing on COVID-19 management in both saving lives and livelihood, and this will continue. So the focus of the government and of course our here at Ministry of Finance have been to provide the necessary allocation for different components of service delivery. So public health and economy. This is to fight the pandemic and directly to the businesses and people whose livelihoods have been affected. So that is what I talk about, continuity and also consistency. Since the most recent stimulus package was launched, the government had already started to focus on the overall recovery aspects for Malaysia. So we understand, that the COVID situation is dynamic. We didn't realize in 2020 what will happen in 2021, and we hope that we can, with vaccination at least, we know that 2022 has to be and can be and should be a recovery year. In terms of new themes and priorities, Shannon, this government will build on what we've done in the past 17 months. That's my view, and I believe that's the view of my colleagues from the first cabinet meeting that we had yesterday, which is really directly assisting people and businesses who have been affected to get back to normalcy systematically and safely. Nonetheless, we recognize, of course, there are challenges ahead, are tough. Recovery will not be smooth or even, and we've seen this not just in Malaysia, but in other countries. So focus on key enablers will be there. We need to focus on key enablers that can nurture growth. 3 areas that will receive special focus will be, firstly, strengthening our healthcare system and respond for future pandemics, as well as strategic industries related to healthcare. Secondly, digitalization and technology, especially through the rollout of critical infrastructure, for example, being 5G. And of course, the thirdly, which I mentioned many times before, is on the green economy and sustainability.
You can watch the full discussion with Malaysia's Finance Minister Tengku Zafrul Abdul Aziz later tonight at 9 p.m. on the Straits Times' website, Facebook or YouTube channels.
Tengku Zafrul is joined by OCBC Bank's Chief Economist Selina Ling and our colleagues, Foreign Editor Bhagyashree Gareka and Malaysia Bureau Chief Shannon Teo.
In other local headlines, NUS and NTU are moving up in the World University rankings to their highest ever positions. In the latest report from Times Higher Education, NUS jumped 4 places to 21st and NTU edged up 1 place to 46th. Oxford University remained on top for the 6th straight year, while Caltech and Harvard tied for 2nd place, followed by Stanford in 4th. The universities were graded on performance in teaching, research, knowledge transfer and international outlook.
Henry Foo Yong Thai, former Land Transport Authority Deputy Group Director, was sentenced to 5.5 years jail today. He was found guilty of taking $1.24 million in bribes from LTA contractors and subcontractors after racking up debts from his gambling addiction. The prosecution said this was the most significant case of public sector corruption in recent times.
Welcome to this week's Live Picks, and we must talk about Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, the latest movie in the Marvel franchise, just out in cinemas.
That's right, it stars Simu Liu in his first major film, as well as Awkwafina and Asian cinema powerhouses Tony Leung and Michelle Yeoh. Well, film correspondent John Lui is here. Hi, John. So you gave Shang-Chi 4 stars in your review. What worked for you? But on the other hand, what accounted for that missing last star?
It's a Marvel movie that's always significant, and it's also a movie about Asian martial arts, which of course is significant for us here and also for Asians living in the West. What I really liked about it was how it seems to have absorbed a lot of really good martial arts movie influences from Jackie Chan to wuxia to Shaolin movies, and sort of processed it and updated it and used that typical Marvel magic, the computer aided design to create something really interesting. 1 star, I guess. It's not a perfect movie. I like horror. It didn't have enough blood in it, I guess. It's for kids. It's for everyone, but it's rated safe for kids.
John, as you rightly mentioned, this movie is important because of its Asian representation, particularly the Chinese culture. How did it handle that aspect?
In a lot of films from Hollywood, when you have Chinese characters, they tend to be supporting in the background. This one is full on, There's one or two white characters and they're supporting characters, but the wealth of the Chinese experience is there on screen. So you have the assimilated, what they call the banana, the ABCs, as represented by Aquafina. That's her specialty these days. And then there is the immigrant parents. They speak Mandarin. You have to understand it in subtitles if you don't understand Mandarin. And then they go to China, and then it's almost the whole experience of Chinese society, both in the West and in Asia.
Thanks as always, John. I am certainly looking forward to watching the movie.
Same here.
Yeah, now we've been speaking with our film correspondent, John Lee.
Now, a famous sandwich chain will open here in a week's time on September the 9th. Jan, never thought I'd say the word slut on the show, but here we go. Egg Slut from Los Angeles will be at Scott Square.
It's called Egg Slut because an egg is added to every dish on the menu. And here with more is food correspondent Eunice Quack. Hi Eunice. Eunice, tell us more about Egg Slut. How is it unique among other egg sandwiches?
This is really actually a burger. It's not just a sandwich. Although the brand calls it sandwiches, but for me, I don't know. When I think of a sandwich, I think of like an egg mayo sandwich, that kind of thing. It's not, and what you get here is not such a basic egg sandwich. I would say you get like a really loaded burger. They use really nice brioche buns. They use cage-free Japanese eggs, so you get that really nice, rich, runny, golden yolk, when you cut through. And the burgers, they do showcase, a variety of how the eggs are cooked. So you can pick, depending on what you like. There's scrambled, there's over medium with the runny yolk. You have hard-boiled, and you have the curdled eggs as well, which is kind of like a poached egg.
Right, so Eunice, we have to ask, what are the highlights, the must-tries over at Egg Slut?
Two sandwiches in particular for me are the real standouts. One is the signature Fairfax, and that one is packed with soft scrambled eggs mixed with chives. Then you have like caramelized onions, melted cheddar cheese, sriracha mayonnaise. So that's really good. The other one would be the gaucho sandwich. It is more expensive, actually the most expensive burger on the menu at $23. But that is because it has seared Wagyu tri-tip steak slices inside. And then you get an over medium egg, a chimichurri sauce, and some red onions, arugula. It's a really great combination. And for me, I love any burger that has a fried egg inside. So this one just ticks all the boxes for me. And then you wash it all down with this elderflower and lemon craft soda. It's an exclusive collaboration with local craft brewery Brewlander. Yeah, so it's excellent.
Indeed, excellent indeed. Thanks very much, Eunice. That was food correspondent Eunice Quack.
Before we go, Yip-In Siu, who's already won a gold medal at the Tokyo Paralympics, is back in the pool at 6 p.m. today. She'll be competing in the S2 50-meter backstroke final and looking for her second goal at this year's games. So all the best to Yip-In Siu.
Exactly. All the best to you. Well, those are our top stories for today. For more news and videos, visit straitstimes.com and subscribe to our YouTube channel by hitting the red button below.
Once again, I'm Haryanto Dimano with Olivia Quay. Join us tomorrow for more stories on The Big Story.